A second healthcare worker in Dallas has been diagnosed with Ebola. Her name is Amber Vinson, and apparently she had flown from Cleveland to Dallas after she had alerted authorities about having a low fever. Okay, so the CDC was aware that she had a low fever, and the CDC was also aware that she was one of the nurses or healthcare workers who was treating Thomas Eric Duncan, the man who was, of course, diagnosed with Ebola and then later died as a result of that. But nonetheless, she was allowed to get on that flight. It was a Frontier Airlines flight from Cleveland to Dallas. And now, as a result, she has been diagnosed. She was diagnosed after that flight. And Frontier Airlines has placed 6 of the workers on that flight on paid leave, 2 pilots and 4 flight assistants. Now, this seems beyond questionable, especially since she alerted authorities about the fact that she had a low fever before she went on that flight.
Yeah.
And she was one of the people who was taking care of Duncan. So why is it that she was able to get on that flight? I don't know. There seems to be a lot more questions than answers at this point. Authorities have not released information about the exact seat that she was sitting in during that flight, but I'm sure people who are on that flight are wondering what the hell is going on. But, you know, just to be absolutely fair with this story, again, the only way that you can contract Ebola is if you have direct contact with bodily fluids, including saliva, semen, vomit, blood. You get the picture.
Yeah, and obviously it's much more likely that an employee would have come into contact with that. And so they've done the right thing by putting them on paid leave. I hope that that means some sort of quarantine. If they're just hanging out at home and then going to Dave & Buster's, that doesn't seem like a good way to solve this. But look, so what a defender of the policy will say, a defender of the CDC will say is that they have a temperature threshold for pulling people aside. She was below that, and so they let her fly, which seems reasonable, except that she'd recently been treating the guy. I would lower the threshold a little bit.
There would be no threshold.
Exactly. If you feel sick,
even
let's check you out.
slightest, increase in body temperature, whatever it is. No, you're not allowed to get on that plane. You need to stay where you are. We need to quarantine you and make sure that you are not symptomatic. And now authorities believe that she was symptomatic earlier than previously believed, and that I just feel like there's a lack of proper oversight in these situations. What is going on? We do have the infrastructure necessary. We do have the resources necessary to contain a virus like this. We should be on high alert when it comes to healthcare professionals that are treating people who have been diagnosed with Ebola. Now, just to give you some more information on this leave, the leave affects 2 pilots and 4 flight attendants aboard Flight 1143 from Cleveland to Dallas Fort Worth on October 13th. And also, the Centers for Disease Control had informed the airline Wednesday that the nurse may have been symptomatic earlier than initially suspected, including the possibility of possessing symptoms while on board the flight. And that's according to Reuters.
Yeah.
And one other thing, Frontier Airlines has released a statement, numerous statements about this. They have disinfected the plane that she was on 4 times at this point, and they say that they have gone above and beyond what the CDC has suggested when it comes to disinfecting an area where an Ebola patient has been. So they're saying that their airline is safe, you have nothing to worry about, and they've taken the proper measures to ensure that the crew that was working on that flight are not working until they are proven to be clear of Ebola.
So they say more than the CDC recommended, but the CDC's recommendations are at best suspect at this point. And it might seem weird, like you're watching this, you're saying, well, why are you guys so worried? You just said in the previous video, that we weren't supposed to be terrified right now. Well, no, if you're living in Maine or if you're living in Oregon, you shouldn't be terrified right now. But in the context of a plane that we know a person with Ebola had been on, they should be incredibly careful and err on the side of caution in cases where caution would help. Not in things like stopping, like a travel ban where caution could actually harm your efforts, but in terms of like lowering the threshold for fevers for people who are directly treating people with Ebola, then caution sounds like a good thing.